Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Rapid Done right here on Rapid Television. Big ups to Victor Ejema for bringing us the sports updates. My name is Victor Arke.
And my name is Martha Alu. Good morning to you. And I hope you've been having a fantastic morning so far. We've had a number of conversations here centered around our nation system, politically, socially, economically. And for the 9 o'clock hour, the big conversation, of course, we dive deeper into conversations as it borders on the African child.
Of course, and today we are talking about mental health and the African child in the diaspora. Now, we see that African children living outside Africa often face big challenges, and they may struggle with fitting in, feeling different, dealing with discrimination, or balancing two cultures. And these challenges can affect their feelings, their confidence, and their mental health. Our guest is Nkiru Esin, a licensed independent clinical social worker, and she will help us understand the mental health challenges these children face and share ways parents and communities can support these children. Good morning to you, ma'am, and thanks for being part of the conversation this morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning. It's
Welcome.
good to have you join us.
Thank you.
All right, so let's begin with the definition of what mental health actually is and why it is important right now to focus on the children in diaspora.
So mental health, as defined by the World Health Organization, is just as you have physical well-being, that mental well-being is the emotional, psychological wellness of an individual. And why it's important to focus on the mental health of children, African children in the diaspora, is because they are dealing with a struggle, a toggle with identity. They're leaving one culture, they grow up in Africa, and their basically culture is the norm. And they move to the Western world, where race becomes what they're confronted with.
Right.
And all of a sudden they become different. Whereas they've grown up, you know, pretty much the same and not having to deal with their race as an issue.
Okay. Now, from your experience, basically, what are the most common mental health issues these children face?
Identity, confusion, I think is the most profound mental health challenge that children face would be identity confusion. And like I said, even if they are born in the US to African parents, the African parents have their culture.
Right.
So they're pretty much immigrants, as it were. So they're dealing with the stressors of being living as an immigrant, even though they become naturalized and they have kids. And so children born in the diaspora, or as you would say, Japad, from Nigeria to Canada, the UK, the US, even more so, have that challenge because they're having to assimilate, which I don't, when I'm dealing with my clients, with kids, integration is integrating both cultures and not assimilating. But when they move, they're moving with an idea that I have to assimilate into the Western culture. And that's where the struggle usually happens, and that affects children.
That's what it's true. I understand that it's quite a trend here in Nigeria where a lot of people feel that they need to go out to look for greener pastures, and then when they go there, it becomes quite difficult to integrate with your family, literally, because you have to work hours, you have to take on shifts just so you can meet up with expenses, bills that are piled up, and what have you. Now, it has become imperative that conversations like this will be had, especially because we now see more people leave Nigeria into other parts of the world just because of survival. Now, from your experience dealing with these children, aside from identity crisis, which of course stems up from dual identity, staying here, being from there, what other major issues do you think that they deal with that attention should be drawn to?
Okay, so children moving from here, that they were born here and raised there, isolation.
Okay.
So you're moving, and that's why preparation is key. So when children are, even kids that are going to school.
Okay.
It's also a very high trend that children after secondary school are the plan or the goal up until a few months ago
Okay.
when student visa, at least to the US.
Mhm.
So I guess the UK is still there, Europe and other parts, is to go to school outside of Nigeria. There needs to be careful preparation for the child's emotional or the adolescent's emotional well-being, because when they migrate to this new culture, a new country, they're going to be faced with isolation.
Okay.
Now, and when they migrate younger with their parents, like you said, there's going to be work, shifts, and all of that. And so there's going to, that isolation stands out.
Okay.
And so the preparation needs to be that once you get into a place, you're looking for, which I was, going to talk about, like, in depth towards the end, because my hope is for the listeners to get tools with which when they're planning. But you want to make plans for your child around that isolation that they'll feel when they get in. Another thing is if it's in middle school. So, so we have age grades and some university as well, college, but mostly middle school, elementary and middle school, there will be some bullying. And the bullying is not physical. The bullying is more emotional. Your accent is different.
Right.
So they make fun of the way you speak. And you automatically think I have to change the way I speak early on. And you find that younger kids change faster. And there's a term for it called code switching.
Okay.
So when they get to school, they're immediately trying to adapt, trying to assimilate and speak like most of the people in the class or in the school. And they're made fun of when they are not speaking, when they come newly. And so that's why I say preparation is very important, no matter how young the child is. If the child is equipped and knows to expect that you sound different, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's the way you sound. And in fact, it's unique. In fact, if you own it and are confident in it, they want to speak like you. It sounds exotic. They'll tell, some people will say, oh, it sounds different. Where is it from? It's from Africa, from Nigeria, and everything. But when you cower, then kids will be kids. They will then make fun of you. So that's the kind of mental, and then, when kids are suffering, like having mental health issues, for example, depression or anxiety, it doesn't really show the way it shows in adults.
Okay. It's different. How different?
It presents differently. They will probably be more quiet.
Okay.
And they could even be more chattery. If all of a sudden a quiet child is responding back to you more,
so it's more like
opposite of what they usually do. Probably don't want to eat. Their appetite changes. They don't want to go to school. Oh, my, stomach hurts. Can I not go today? And all of that. So constant check-ins are important.
Absolutely.
And of course, you've talked about some of those preparations that parents need to make to ensure that their children can as well transition effectively and properly once you leave Africa to the European countries. And I think one of the things you said that I picked out is they need to build their confidence as it is. But again, they are leaving Nigeria, they're leaving Africa. And there's always going to be that nudge to want to sound exactly like the people where they are. Now, for those that will be trying to sound like them, how would they get to integrate without also losing their sense of identity?
So kids do it very well. They switch very well. So at home, they can speak, maybe their language, or speak, with broken or pidgin English, or the way, and then they get to school and they switch. And then start, they learn it very quickly, just so that it's like a defense mechanism of some sort. So your question would be, how can they, that's what they do. They try to assimilate and speak like the kids, and that's fine. Don't stop them. If they can, that's fine. But before they get to it, because it's not going to be automatic, it's going to take you a couple of weeks and months. So before they get there, let them kind of, build their confidence that you sound fine, you just sound different. And that's okay. But with time, they will switch. I don't think that there's much you can do to prevent it.
But you've also seen that one way or the other, when children leave the African descent to the European country, a lot of times it just seems like the African culture has been abandoned from speaking our local languages, from sounding like an African. That's the way I was heading when I asked about the identity. Now you lose the sound, you lose the African accent, and many times these children also no longer know how to speak their local languages. I mean, how do we preserve this even while we travel?
Do as much as you can to preserve it at home.
Okay.
Do as much as possible, because the children are able to that's why I'm looking for integration rather than assimilation. Because when you assimilate, you lose one part of yourself to assimilate into the other. No, but when you integrate, you're merging the both of us can exist comfortably at the same time. So if I'm young and I'm able to pick up your accent and speak just like you and everything, that's fine, but when I get home, I'm able to speak African and maintain my culture. And that is the responsibility of the home front, to maintain it. African food, African meals, as they, I know, families that all of a sudden the kids, maybe they don't want to swallow anymore, and they insist you still swallow maybe once a week or once in 2 weeks, just so you don't lose, your food, because food is culture, speak it, go to, even if you don't want to join an African church, there are a lot of churches that are here that are all over. They have branches all over the world. You can join one of those, and even if you don't want to, you can also join the association of, Nigerian association. Encourage the kids to join the Nigerian associations in school, to even form them. I tell my clients that are teenagers that if it doesn't exist, you can form one. That's very good for your profile, your resume when you're applying to college.
All right. Next question I want to ask is about the parents. Now, we've talked a lot about the children, and these children are guided by their parents, who also will be finding it difficult to integrate into a society. They have lived, imagine an African parent living in Africa, Nigeria particularly, and there's a way we raise our kids over here, where when you do something, they most likely will spank you, they yell at you, without even speaking. The African mom knows how to tell you not to do what you're about to do.
Discipline.
You see, and it's quite different outside of Nigeria, because now we hear things like gentle parenting. You cannot yell at them, you need to appeal to their emotions, you need to, and this is far off different from what we have in the African society. If you ask me, I'll recommend the rod sometimes because it's also very important. But how would the parents also integrate into a society that demands so much of so less of what they are used to and more of emotions, since that is quite a contrast between what we do here and what happens over there?
Because fortunately or unfortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, over there, using the rod is deemed illegal. So as the parent, you will get into trouble. And unfortunately, these kids know that
you get into trouble.
And so you hear kids threatening parents that I will call. My response to that is, you're the one that's going to suffer, really. To an extent, you can call their bluff. However, there are other ways to parent, discipline the children without necessarily using the rod. That rod usually is because it's like the fastest reset button. It appears to be like, oh, this will be the immediate reaction, like boo boo. But there are other ways. May take a little bit longer, but it's just as effective, if not more effective. And so, there's a discipline with which we're used to raising our children in Africa. Parents should maintain it. And you don't necessarily have to use the rod to maintain it. Boundaries. Can I sleep over? I'm sorry. And this is why. Which, in the African setting, you may not get a response. You may not get an explanation. that is called for. You have to learn. You chose to move, so you have to learn how to be more expressive. You know, and the African children tend to be raised for survival. You have to be able to survive, whereas in the West, it is more to be able to relate, to advocate for yourself, to express yourself. So you find that children that are in school outside of Nigeria, outside of Africa, are more expressive. And that's what you can expect. So
I think they're starting to integrate that here too in Nigeria. Schools don't allow like using
corporal
the road
punishment,
anymore, corporal punishment and all that,
yeah.
and then being expressive. These days you see a lot of people, and that's why we have.
But there's a thin line.
There's a thin line, is there? Because now the Gen Zs, I'm sure you must have heard the Gen Zs and the millennial kind of thing, because Gen Zs now are more outspoken. They are the ones who stand up to their bosses at work. They're the ones who stand up to their parents. They're the ones who will stand up to anybody online. It's quite different. So I think we're quite aligning in this aspect, you know, between both the Nigerian parents, African parents, and the Western parents. But yes, my question is still to you said to adjust to these people, but I think there's a kind of psychological adjustment that also needs to be done to the parents. How do you think that they can go about this? Because much more than knowing what is obtainable here is being able to accept and work with what is obtainable here
in
the Western
world. Yeah, so if you need support, seek it. If you need support in terms of mental health support, you know, you have parents that need, you know, that emotional support as well, like, because they're overwhelmed as well. Like you mentioned earlier, you know, some people are working 2-3 shifts to keep it going. And that's another thing, this whole, the Japa syndrome, it's like families are separating, where it's either the mother is going with the children and the father stays back. So it's not a two-parent system, which would be helpful, especially when we're moving to a new place. So that, you know, I always try to give parents grace. It's not easy. It's difficult trying to provide economically, financially, and emotionally. So I advocate for support. You need to get support early on. Faith-based support, you're Christian, Muslim, whatever your faith is, faith-based support is important, as well as emotional and psychological support. There's a lot of agencies that would provide it for newcomers, for migrating families. The resources are out there. You know, just have to Google is your cousin. Just Google and find in your area where you can get that kind of emotional support, psychological support for transitions, when you're making that transition. It's very, very important. To help, you know, because there will be good days and there'll be bad days. You need that support, and even that understanding of what obtains in the culture or the country where I live in legally, and best practice. Absolutely. Once you've got that information, that's, you know, you're armed with that information, it helps.
You know, certain times parents usually do not know what to do when they find their children having stress, anxiety, or even depressed as it is, and same thing with caregivers as it is. So when parents or caregivers find themselves in this situation, what is the first point of call in seeking for help?
The good thing, because I'm finding that in Nigeria schools, I'm dealing with a particular case right now with a parent who wants me, who I'm talking to, their teen. Schools here don't have that support in terms of having a social worker or a psychologist in the school. In the UK, in Europe that I can speak to, and Canada and the US, every school has some form of psychological support that students and parents can go to. That would be the first port of call. I would greatly suggest that they know you and they know your children, because while it's, you know, even in the public school system as well as private school system, while it's you know, every child is supposed to be attended to, we still have a situation where, you know, the numbers are maybe more than the ratio is not where you would want the ratio to be. So a parent taking a child to school, it's important that you know your teachers know you, and the emotional and psychological support that they have. They have behavioral supports in place if the child needs extra, because the way they've been taught in the country they're coming from may be different from the country they're going to. I give you an example. Family japad to Canada, and the child was about 3 years old, 3 to 4, I believe, years old, so pre-K. And they were about to, kept on saying the child is having issues adjusting to the school, child's having issues. Maybe this might not be a good fit for the child. And so when I was consulted, I advised the parents to go back to the school and have a meeting and a conversation and explain the cultural differences. That it won't be different in another school. The child needs to adjust, and the school needs to be patient and work with the child in adjusting. At 4, a child in Canada is already tying their shoelace, is already putting their lunch pack together, is already coming into the class immediately, putting their thing in the cubby hole, ready. In fact, when they go to eat, they know they take their turns, everybody cleans up. A child at 4 in Nigeria does not do that.
Still just a child.
Still just a child, has 2 nannies maybe, or 1 doing all of that. They don't start doing, they're not as independent as far.
I think that's arguable.
Baby or
Exactly, that's very arguable, because at 4, certain children are already smart enough to start to do a lot of things. We see children who hawk. So it depends on the background of the child. At 4, generally, I think that naturally African children are very independent, because you'd see at a very young age, they already want to wear a certain outfit. You are telling them this is what they need to be, and they don't like it. And so they cry until you change that outfit. It might not be directly independent by doing it on their own, but they know what they want. So I think that the 4-year spec for Nigeria or African countries should basically be based on the background. At 4, some don't know what they want to do. But at 4, some other children are fully aware of themselves.
So this child was 3 going on 4, and they know what they want, but they're not independent enough to do it actually physically do it. And a 4-year-old, like you said, yes, 4-year-olds are hawking. They may not be the ones japaying.
Of course, but they're moving with their family.
Yeah, they may not necessarily be the ones hawking on the streets, are the ones jumping, being able to just up and leave and go to another country. Usually the people that can up and leave are the socioeconomic status I'm talking about, who have helps. In the US, and that's another culture shock for parents, where I say they're exhausted, they're going to work, they're coming back, it's a DIY. You're driving, you're doing the pickup, the drop off. If I want my child to have an extracurricular, I would love it. Yes, it's free, but it's going to take a toll on me. What am I getting back from work? To drop off this child there, to bring the child back, So there's an emotional and physical strain, on the children, on there, and everything is yourself, and that's why. So, the 3-year-olds that I'm saying are doing these things themselves is not because they're smarter or they are. It's the society. It's the way it works. Who's going to do it?
So they grow differently.
So from the time they're put to bed by themselves. Nobody's sleeping with you. Nobody is rocking you to bed. Nobody's put them on the bed, and they will fall asleep eventually. From literally when they're born.
But do you see any sort of, should I call it a disadvantage in this kind of upbringing? Because in Nigeria, at 4, like you said, sometimes you get the privilege of being read bedtime stories and all of that, depending on your background again. Now, some of these children, and I don't even think that's such a barrier, because you'd see people who are literally struggling, but they still find a way to be, they still find time to model their kids in ways that they would love them to grow up as. And which is why you'd see that it's easy for you to see a child from the African descent who is morally upright or standardized, especially because they had the guardians of their parents. Now, you've made mention of the fact that in these societies, these Western communities, they sometimes don't have the privilege of being rocked to bed or all of those special attention that is given to the African. Do you see any disadvantage in that kind of upbringing for these children?
I like to look at things as difference.
Not disadvantage.
Not disadvantage. Okay. So, because one advantage is a disadvantage there, and another advantage there is a disadvantage here. And not don't get me wrong, they still, find a way to, read bedtime stories.
Yeah. Yes, they do.
That's a thing.
Sure do.
But they look for ways that they can make it easier for themselves because they can't afford. It's the people who are rich, have a lot of money that can afford hired helps. Whereas in Africa, it doesn't cost as much.
Yeah.
I guess the argument can be made that there's some people that still can't afford help in Nigeria. But I mean, you have your, cousin or someone
there's
that
someone
can
from
help
the village
you.
who can help
Yes, you have help. That physical help when you have young children goes a long way. But I hear you in terms of the advantage of having that, that presence, that community.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's where, on the other side, that isolation steps in and then a tendency to be selfish, individualized, because everything is focused on me and what I have to get done and what I have to do. I really don't have time to help, as opposed to the community support that you have in Africa just by virtue of our culture.
You specialize in culturally sensitive crisis intervention. Now, from your field of operation, what mistake do you think Western systems sometimes make when accessing African children?
Abuse.
Okay.
What they call abuse. I'm constantly, and in the organizations I work in, trying to reset or provide some kind of mindset shift to what is abuse, or what you see as abuse may not be abuse
here
for this child's home that they're coming from.
Okay.
And that has happened a couple of times. Even there was an incident we had with school-based mental health, and the child was then referred to us, and it was a Chinese child who immediately was referred to us, and they wanted to call Child Protective Services. And as if Child Protective Services is an agency that's like the watchdog for children, which is, I think, paramount. I wish every society, every country would have it. However, I also believe that it should be culturally sensitive when you're doing this, when you're being a watchdog, because you could, pick out a child from a home that nothing is really going on. There's no abuse as you think there is. And this child comes with red marks and is like, oh my God, this child is being abused. The teacher reports, they're referred to us. We should need to call Child Protective Services. We go in to assess, and then immediately I know the child is Chinese. I need to know more. So I have a meeting, with the child and everything, and how did you get these marks and all of that? And so they had a cold and all of that. Called the parents, and the parent corroborated that their culture is using warm, like coins, or something. Put more, like stones, warm stones, and then just pressing it. And then their skin is light, so it will leave like it'll be reddish. But that was their treatment of dealing with the cold. And so I have to write a report and say, we're not calling child protection, and this is why. So that's what I mean by culturally sensitive.
That sounds like a very interesting job, because I mean, now you have to find out what exactly is obtainable within these communities, just so that you can make the right judgment.
Of course, we're still having a conversation here with Inquiry SA, and we're talking about mental health and, of course, the African diaspora. But let's go on a break, and we'll come back. We'll dive deeper into the conversation. Just stay with us. Glad to have you back on Rapid On this morning. Of course, we're still having a conversation centered around mental health and, of course, African children in diaspora. And our guest has been Inquiry SA, and she's been giving us answers to the questions we've been asking. Once again, thank you so much for being part of the conversation, Mother.
My pleasure.
Thank you. So let's move in even deeper now. Are there specific tools, mental health tools or resources that are very efficient for the African child out there when they are facing these mental health challenges?
Like I said, school-based mental health is a tool that the child should use, and they have at their disposal if and when needed. If parents notice that their children are presenting different, are quiet, when they used to speak more or talk more, don't feel like going to school a lot anymore, grades are declining, or the grades are not picking up, because when you move, initially they would decline. The go-to is the school-based mental health professionals that they have. And then if they wanted to look for support where they would have psychological support that are culturally sensitive, that would also be a good tool. But the school could help them find, because the school is the first stop, but is not intensive, probably won't, it won't be after school hours. So the school could help them navigate what other resources are out there that they could benefit from.
All right. Still talking about parents and communities as well. Some practical steps anyways that both parents and communities can actually also adopt to ensure that young children who are traveling outside the country, can hold on to thrive both mentally and emotionally.
So I think with the Japa syndrome, I think it has reduced though.
Has it?
Has it?
It's so funny how it is here. 1 minute you think, oh, Nigeria is getting better. I think it's getting very okay. Let's just stay. And then one day you see something on the news, you are making plans to Japa the next time. Let's go. It's not working. I don't think this is going to work. Let's just go. So it's just
it's
very tricky here.
Many families still travel.
Exactly. Plus, it has become really expensive. Look at the visa requirements for the United States and other parts of the world. So we have limitations. It's not like we don't like it.
So, because I was going to say, with the Japa syndrome, it's important as you're, planning your visa requirements and everything else. Also plan your emotional plans. Make emotional plans as well. To when I get there, the city I'm going to, who is there, who knows? Because somebody will know someone. I've heard so many, success stories of, someone saying, "Oh, my neighbor lives here. Let me check." And then, or even someone whose kids were going without her and was going to a school in another state and found someone who knew someone who actually taught in the school. That was an immediate second home she has. So while she's in the dorm, she has the home 5 minutes from campus to go to. So that is critical. So just like even as soon as you know your child is going for school, look for who lives in that area. Ask 1 or 2 people around you, or 3 people around you here, who do you know that lives in, for example, New York, and what part of New York, and before you know it, your relative might even be living there and you don't even know. And then if you're going with young kids, also make plans. What's my community going to look like? Because isolation is real.
Okay. Having done a bit of work around grief myself, I understand that certain experiences can be passed on from parent to child, and which can affect the psychology of the child. Now, migration itself can be traumatic.
Yes.
So do you think that children inherit unresolved migration stress, meeting up with the visa requirements, wanting to take African food, wanting to adjust all the way to all of the culture that is obtainable there? Do you think these unresolved migration stress or trauma pass on from parent to the child? And then how does this unprocessed parental stress affect children psychologically?
Definitely passes on to the children, depending on how the parent resolves their stress, because that's a stressor for migrating, which is like what you said, the preparation and everything. And when they children are usually excited depending on the age. So they're not taking on as stress. It's like, do what you have to do to get us to the other side. So it's an excitement. It's like, oh, mom is taking care of things and everything. However, I think once we have gone out there and the excitement has waned, that this is our reality, how do the parents now integrate? That's where the children absorb that stress when they get there and they're not really doing well integrating, which is why I say
mom is not at home as she would be all the time.
She's not at home, or she's like, reminding the kids what she has to do to be able to do this, and it's like basically guilting the children, and that puts some kind of emotional stress on the children as well, and so they're now thinking, maybe should we have even moved? Maybe it's worse. Maybe mom is more tense. Even the tension, they feel it. When their parents are tense or anxious, they feel it's transferred, like you rightly said. So, yeah, and there's a lot of grief in migration because you're leaving something behind. It's lost.
Right.
So there's grief in migration, and if you don't see it as that and process it, it can trip you up because you're thinking, oh, it's fine, it's nothing, there's nothing there moving you, but there's an element of grief that if you don't process it, you're going to pass to your kids.
Okay. How do you think they can handle this? How do you think they can manage this?
Be aware of what it is. What you're doing is you're living, a life that you knew for the unknown, and you're getting there, and it's sometimes not even all that it was cut out to be. The green pasture on the other side, you're like, oh, it's green, it's wonderful, and you're like, wait a minute.
It's not what I
Can
thought.
I go back? You're like in the middle of the do I stay or do I go back? But I brought these kids here, but the education for the kids, but you yourself are like thinking, it's not what it, so own it, name it, what it is, own it, and process. This is hard. This is not what I thought it was going to be. It's taking me a minute. Talk to someone.
Right.
There's stigma around mental health, I think, in the African community, which is a disadvantage.
It is.
Because mental health is just physical health, is just as important as you see your doctor to make sure that, your blood pressure is right, your cholesterol is right, your kidneys are working well, is the same way that you should check.
All right.
You might be fine. You might be feeling fine, but just to check. I just moved and everything. It's kind of hard. I think I got it together, but you would be amazed. 1 or 2 or 3 conversations down the line, you find, oh, yes.
You got, but this is for people who are migrated. Now let's speak a bit about home as well.
Okay.
Because we've just ticked over 80,000 suicides in 2026.
Yeah.
This is just February. We've clicked over, this is in 4 weeks, we have about 80,000 already.
Wow.
Yes, in 2026. That's what report says.
At least it's being reported.
It's reported. I think we've made progress with reporting.
Wow, because it's been going on, but it's not being reported.
Exactly. And then we now have suicide is no longer criminalized. I think it's being passed, it's being deliberated. I don't know how far it has come with whether it has been passed into law or not, but I know that there are deliberations to decriminalize suicide, which would help also with cases like this. But this is 80,000. It's not 5, not 10. It's 80,000.
80,000 people.
Exactly, which means that there's still an unspoken crisis when it comes to speaking about what exactly. So how do you think we can deal with this here before we even move? Because when you haven't dealt with it here, I think that when you go over there, it will be amplified because the system is already isolated on its own. No neighbors to talk to. No, everything is capital intensive. It's bills. How do you deal with it here?
And so there's even an isolation with people around you.
Yes.
And still you're not don't feel psychologically safe to talk to them. So there's another issue with isolation where you have people, but you don't have people. So, again, that's why I said destigmatize mental health.
Okay.
It cannot be overemphasized. With children especially, it cannot be overemphasized because even the bullying goes on even here in schools. And like I said, I've noted that even the so-called top schools where you pay top dollar don't have psychological support for the kids. No. And so they're being bullied. And because of social media, bullying even has taken on a whole different tone, whereby if you're bullied online and people that don't know, you even feel even more stressed, emotional, anxiety and depression can hit, and kids don't talk about their emotions.
Yeah.
They express it in other ways, but they don't talk about it. So if you're not regularly checking in with your children, and like you asked about the advantage and disadvantage, this is one the advantage and disadvantage of not having or difference.
Yeah, different
should I
kind
say?
Of upbringing.
Like outside, it's a DIY You're probably the one having to cook dinner.
Mm-hmm.
You can plan. When we come back from work and we have dinner together, we talk. I'm the one dropping you. We talk. Here, it's very easy for us not to have those regular check-ins because maybe, and again, socioeconomic status. So it doesn't apply to everyone. Some people have to do the school runs themselves and everything, and then we can talk rushing, drop you, rush and get this and everything. But there are people at home as well. There's the nannies or there's cousins, everything that you may not want to do a check-in, a private check-in with your child, as opposed to outside where it's just you and the kids. So there's an opportunity to have those conversations. Regular check-ins, I believe, like a meal together every week, at least once a week. Either it's a meal that we're doing or a meeting, or after church we have some kind of family get together.
To bring in a bond.
Form the bond, form the connection, let children feel comfortable talking about what they're going through, and then don't dismiss it. When I was your age, just chin up, just take it. But when you're your age, you didn't have social media.
True.
So the bullying was maybe within the school setting. Now the bullying is all over the world.
Exactly.
There may be a girl you're talking to online, and someone has sent a message. Oh, it's crazy. And kids can't handle those kinds of pressures, and they're dealing with on their own. They'll come up with all kinds of things, and again, online they're taught how to. There's a program that I came to find out about, which is crazy, which tells kids how to do it.
Really?
Yeah.
Because if you notice, actually, not just in
the
Nigeria.
method. It gives them the method.
Not just in Nigeria, even abroad there. We've seen that young kids right now grow up online.
Scary.
And it's quite
It's
scary.
very scary. Very scary.
They begin to form their characters and habits from the things that they see online.
Yeah.
And if you look at that, it's a big time challenge as well.
Yes.
But again, how can these now be curtailed? I know you've talked about conversations, having those talks with your parents and all of that. But sometimes these parents are not present. You
have to be.
But we've seen cases where many parents are actually not present.
The father is coming in from his shifts, the mother is just leaving, the child is
so it's just, so how can this be balanced?
So here or there?
We can go here and there.
I think here there's always, if I want to travel now, I have a kid, I know who to drop my kid with.
Right.
You see, and I don't even need to be family, blood related to these people. They're just people that I grew up with, and I trust my kids with them. Exactly. So that communal living, we have it here. So one way or another, you are safe. But
yet you're still careful.
But you're still careful.
Exactly.
Right?
But here, there's also a very high incidence rate of uncle abusing. There's still a very high rate of incest, and uncle abusing young kids, girls that tell stories of having been touched in the wrong places by people that they shouldn't have, family members, help, and boys too, girls and boys. So while you have people and you take it for granted that you have people, I trust them that they, we grew up together, we have the same values. Sometimes the mind is warped, and then they just all of a sudden, So with that in mind, over there, how would you with the shifts, and sometimes even the mom is there alone or the dad is there alone, the father is still working in another country and everything. Support. You just have to go out looking for support. Get your kids engaged in sports. Sports is a good, training ground for the physical and also for the emotional and mental. Coaches play a big role in helping kids. The discipline of sports, learning to win, learning to lose, how to take it, the group support of your teammates is also very helpful. So I highly recommend sports, especially if you feel like, you're a single parent, navigating on your own, or you're even, both parents but work shift, and get your child involved in extracurricular activities. Sports being number one, and if they don't like sports, music,
any extra.
But team, learning how to function in a team, a small team, is very helpful.
Right. Let's have your final thoughts. You know, just your concluding thoughts on the subject matter.
My concluding thoughts would be for families that are planning to migrate. When you're taking care of your visa plans, please take care of your emotional plans as well for the kids. And that children present their emotional stressors differently.
Yeah.
So pay close attention to them, provide an enabling and safe environment. I think African homes are the most loving, but sometimes not emotionally available. So try to, go the extra mile to make sure that while I'm very loving of my child and my child knows I love them, I have to be also emotionally available, emotionally supportive. Don't dismiss anything that they're feeling. Rather ask, tell me more. Tell me more. And you might learn more about your child than you know.
Right. Thank you so much for your time with us this month. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We've been talking with Nkiru Esin. She's a licensed independent clinical social worker. And of course, we've been talking about mental health and the African child in diaspora. Once again, thank you so much for being here with us. We do appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, of course, Martha, let's hear you
this
first.
This is where we wrap it up. It's super important because I have personally wondered how families cope outside of Nigeria. If you have family outside there, you know that calling them has to be a schedule, keeping up with so many things has to be a schedule.
Sure.
My shift is today, I cannot talk today, it has to be tomorrow. It's a lot. And before you know, time passes and you just realize that you've spent most of your time taking all those shifts and you haven't built anything solid for yourself. So I think it's super important that people have the right knowledge. They're furnished with the right knowledge. So they know that this is what to expect when we go out there. So how do we balance it? If we create a plan, and you see, because most families don't tend to create this plan or don't talk about it, they break when they go out there because the pressure becomes too much and you are not understanding that I'm under pressure, I'm not understanding that you're also under pressure, and then we just clash and it doesn't work anymore. It's not because they didn't love each other from here, but because they didn't have the right communication, they didn't prepare properly, and so when they go out there, everything becomes a shock and then they fall out immediately. So I think it's super important, but most importantly, it's our government trying to fix the country, because I believe that if the country is very functional, I don't think anybody would choose to leave their homes and then go to another man's land and trying to integrate into another person's culture. Everybody loves freedom. So this is a call also to the government to see through the lens of its citizens and fix the country just so that we can remain where we are. We love our country, to be honest. We love the culture, we love the people, but it's important that the government fixes the country so that we're able to thrive here.
Very true. And of course, the concept of communal living here in Nigeria is something, whenever we have conversations like this, you just know that you need to cherish that communal living that we once had in Nigeria. I think we still have it, but I think
we once had
we still have it anyway. But if you notice, gradually it's fizzling out, and I think it's important that we have to water it and get to understand that there was a time where you hear that a community raised a child, but now people are raising their children on their own. I mean, try and spank someone's kids, they'll come to your house, and you know what's happening. But I really do think that we need to pay attention. And just like our guest concluded, once your child is trying to talk to you, always learn to ask, tell me more. Don't shut them down. Let them be able to express to you. Because if you don't get to talk to your children, some other person might be talking to them, and who knows what this other person will be telling them. With that being said, this is all we're going to be taking on today's edition of the Rapid Dawn. Do remember that you can follow us on all our social media pages across our platform at Rapid TV. And you can get to rewatch all our episodes on our YouTube platform, which is at Official Rapid TV. And wherever you are in the world, you can watch us live using our website, www.arabianradiotv.com. My name is Victor Ake.
And my name is Martha Alo. We'll see you tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow.